Good morning. I'm Terri Bucci from Ohio State Math Literacy Initiative. I'm glad you could join us for our second session on Math Mondays. And we're going to be talking today about place value and the importance of place value. If you're able to come to any of our other sessions, or if there are sessions that you would like to see next Monday Math Day, please send us a comment either in Instagram or in our Facebook Messenger. So this is what's going to be happening the rest of the week. Let's talk about place value. Thanks for being here, first of all. I know there's lots of things going on, and you're choosing to really figure out how to help your student or your child the best. So I hope I can help you do that too. So let's talk just a little bit about why place value is so incredibly important and it goes through all of the years of mathematics teaching and learning. So it's similar to reading. So we have this word. I just had this word up here, Monday. Now, Monday has a meaning. We put those letters together, those sounds together, and Monday has a meaning. We all know what Monday means in our country and in our language. But we also have to know each of the individual pieces of the word Monday, or any day for that matter. So we need to know that when we see this D, it makes the D sound. So that's really important in reading. And we need to know that when we blend all of these letters together, knowing first their sounds, we need to know what that word means. And so that's our language. Mathematics is very, very similar. So if we have a number like 862, the same thing has to happen. So we need to know what the number 8 is. We need to be able to recognize it. But we also need to know what all the other numbers are and recognize them. But together, they mean something different. Just like you can use an M in a different day, this M has the same sound. Just like this 8, if we had 83, this 8 is the same, but they mean different things when they're ordered differently in a word. It's the same thing when we talk about mathematics. So, what do these numbers mean? That's what we're going to talk about with place value. So yes, we know this is an 8, we know this is a 6, we know this is a 2, but when we put them together, like in the word Monday, in our number, when we put them together, what do they mean together? That's what's really important. So let's talk about that just a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit here. Now I'm talking to the caregivers just so that you can feel comfortable with some of these ideas. If you have questions about any of these, please send questions. You can put questions in your comment on the Instagram Live, or you can post them to our Instagram page or our Facebook page. We'll be posting all of these videos on our Facebook page too. So what does this word really mean, this number word? So we have an 8, a 6, and a 2. What does that mean? So what is this 8? What is its value? Where is it? That's when we start talking about place values. So this happens to be our hundreds value. So any number that goes there, that tells us how many hundreds we have. This is our tens place. That's when we get the word place value, that's where it comes from. And this is our ones place. So although 8 means 8 means 8 means 8, in this word, in this number word, this 8 really means 8 hundreds, which is 800. That means 8 hundreds. All right, let's look at the 6, because we know what a 6 is, but now in this word, in this number word, we need to know what it means. So we have 6 tens. 6 tens. And what is 6 tens? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. 60. So we have a 60 from our 6. And now our last letter, comparable to the letter in the word, our last number is 2. So what place is this? This is the ones place. So what do we have? We have 2 ones. So 2 ones is 2. Now some of you may be doing homework with your child at home, and they may be asking for something called expanded notation. That's what this is. This is expanded notation. So we know that to get to this number right here, we have 8 hundreds, which is 800. We have 6 tens, which is 60, and we have 2 ones. So we know if we put all those things together, we get our 862. It's really valuable for your student or your child to know how to be able to break this down. Because once we get into addition and subtraction of larger numbers, they'll be much better prepared to be able to combine some of those numbers. I know I saw a couple of posts about people being frustrated about expanded notation and what it is, and it does seem a little odd, but if you think about it in the way that we learn to read, it's very similar. This is kind of like our phonics part of reading. I know I'm not a reading person, but that's how I think of this. So we can really relate that together. Now, it's really important when you start to add and subtract, and I think most of us learn to add and subtract with the ideas of carrying and borrowing. We now say regrouping, so I'm going to write that down, regrouping. And it's really easier to use the word regrouping because you don't have to figure out, am I carrying or am I borrowing? What am I doing? So don't even worry about the carry and borrow nonsense. Just say, we're going to regroup. We're going to take some of these ones and we're going to regroup them into tens. Or take some of these tens and regroup them into hundreds. So that's what we're going to be talking about when we talk about how to use these ideas in operations. When I say the word operation, that means addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So we're not going to do that today. We'll probably do that on next Monday, Math Day. But this is why expanded notation is important. It's just as important as knowing the letters of your words, knowing how they sound, and knowing how they sound together. Together, they represent something special. So together, these letters represent Monday. Together, these numbers represent 862. That's really important. And usually, when you can connect it to something that a student already knows, that's even better. So I'm going to talk about an activity that you can do to get your student or your child ready to start combining numbers. This is a game that we're going to play a game, and it's called the Banker's Game or Trading Game. Now, this is from the Algebra Project work. The Math Literacy Initiative works directly with Algebra Project, Bob Moses's work. Fantastic work that really finds ways to get students engaged in mathematics with their own ideas and their own language. And then the teacher helps to carry that language over into math language. It sounds really cool. It is very cool. But we'll be doing several Algebra Project based lessons. Now, what I'd like you, I'm going to do make the board for you together with you. Just take any plain piece of paper. It can be scrap paper. It doesn't matter. This is just the game board. So I'm going to fold it. Now, this is called hamburger fold, if you remember it from when you were in school. So we're going to hamburger it. And then now, because it's long ways, we call this hot dog. All kinds of tricks and stuff for teachers. So this is hot dog. So I'm going to hamburger fold it and hot dog fold it. So we have it into 4 equal parts. You can use this idea with fractions as well. So we have 4 equal parts, but I'm going to flip this lid down a little bit. I'm going to just flip that lid down. So we have like an instant table now, or for our purposes, we have a board game. So this game, we'll be talking about doing regrouping, which is what we just talked about. So I have one, and I've already written down my colors. Now, we need counters for this activity too. So again, you can use whatever you want for counters. Now, for this activity, the counters all need to be different. So they can be the same item but different colors, or they could be different items. So you could use some of, if you want to use nature, you could use, I have these little baby pine cones. That could represent green, so I could put pine cone there if I wanted to. If you have, your modeling clay balls. You could have that. So you could use color if you use modeling clay, if you have some of that at home. If you don't have that at home, we talked a little bit in our first session about the fact that you can just make colored counters out of old used paper. So all you do is you take the paper, make sure that you have 4 different colors. So I just colored, really not super fancy schmance, but just colored, and then you can just rip off pieces and scrishle it up. So now we have a red counter, and you can see that it's a red counter. We didn't have any fancy tools, just use pieces of paper. So use whatever you have available to you. I'm going to use pieces of construction paper, so I happen to have some here at home. So I'm going to use construction paper, but again, you don't have to have construction paper. Use whatever you have at home. Now, we do need to be able to pick numbers. So you can use die if you happen to have a die. If you have one and if you have some games at home, you can use it. But again, if you don't have dice, that doesn't mean you can't do this super fun game. You can use cards if you want to, and you would use aces through tens for this particular game, aces through tens. Or you could just make numbers on a piece of paper, fold it up, put it in a basket, and every time it's somebody's turn, they just pick a number out of the basket. So I really want you to not worry about the tool. The tool isn't, it's not that important that it be a particular tool. The only thing for this one is that they're all a little bit different. So I'm going to play, this is called the banker's game. Sometimes it's called the trading game. Now, when we start off playing this with kids, the idea is to get to the trade. So it's that trade, which really means when we're talking about this trade is really this regrouping. If you can help your child figure out and practice with this regrouping, your teachers will love you. So regrouping, hugely important. All right, so now we need to have a trade number. So typically when we start off, so let's say you have a first grader or a second grader. If you start off, you want to start off with a small number. So a trade number, let's say we have a trade number of 3. That means that whenever you get 3 greens, that gives you a purple. Whenever you get 3 purples, that gives you a yellow. When you get 3 yellows, that gives you a black. And the first one to get black wins. That's this game. You can play it with your child. Your children can play with each other. Adults can play this. We do this with teachers all the time. So I'm going to roll a die. Again, you can pull cards if you want or something. So I'm going to roll a die, and I got a 4. Really, I did get a 4. So I'm going to put 4 greens. Here. Now there's a rule. You can't have 3 or more, so you can't have the trade number or more in any column. So because we have this trade number here, we have 4 here, that's not a legal board anymore. So you have to make your board legal. So that means we have to trade in whatever we can. So if the trade value is 3, that means I'm going to take these 3 greens, and I'm going to trade it in for whatever's next, so purple. So I get a purple now. All right, so now do I have 3 or more? Nope, I'm good to go, so my board is good. Now when you play with your child at home, you have to okay each other's boards, all right? So now I'm going to roll the die again. I got a 3. I'll prove it. I guess I could have just turned that over. So now I got a 3. Oh, I already have them up here. So I'm going to, now, every time you roll the die or pull a card or pull a number, it goes to whatever is in this right-hand column. So whatever green is. So if I pull a 3, even though I know some adults and some of the older children might say, oh, I know 3 greens is a purple, so I can put that. if they can articulate that, if they can say, I know 3 greens is just going to give me a purple, so I don't want to put those 3 greens on there, I just want to get a purple, that's okay. But one of the things that we find that students sometimes do is the next time they roll, they think it's going to be the pink or the purple row. And then the next time they roll, they think it's yellow, and that's not how we play the game. So I'm going to actually physically move these 3 over. This is also what's called tactile, so you want your child to do things with their fingers, do their math with their fingers. So again, we have 3 now. So I have 3 or more in this column, so I'm going to have to trade these in for another purple. So I took them off because now I have a purple. I'm going to roll again, and I got a 5. So a 5, let's see. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, remember that other green was already there, so that doesn't count as part of our 5. 5. So now I just put, so this one was here. These 5 are new. So now, do I have 3 or more in a row or a column? Yeah, so I'm going to take 3 of these, and these 3 trade in for a purple. Now, the next person can't take a turn unless the person that just rolled asks them if their board is legal. So this is not a legal board right now because we have 3 or more and actually 2 columns. So we have 3 greens. What do we know 3 greens makes? Well, 3 greens makes a purple. So there's our 3 greens. I'm going to get another purple, put it up here. But now we have 3 or more purples. So now, what do you think we're going to trade for? We have 3 purples. I'm going to take these 3 purples, and I'm going to trade it for a yellow. All right, so now we have a board that looks like this. All right, I'm going to roll again. I got a 6. Woohoo! So we need 6 greens. Remember, whatever you roll, that comes up in this column. So 6 greens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, I know a lot of you are ahead of me, and you know how to do this now, but I just really want to get all the way to a black. So we have 3. So I don't have a legal board. I'm going to move these. There's 3. That means I get a purple. There's 3. That means I get a purple. Now, don't do the moving for your student. I know it starts to get fun, and you just want to do it, but they have to be the ones that are looking at it. And if they don't see it, so let's say this is your student or your child's board, and you say, okay, and they say, it's your turn now, and you say, well, I don't think that's a legal board. Can you see any changes or trades that you can make? And then we trade for 3, and then they can notice, oh, I have 3 purples. So I'm going to trade these 3 purples for a yellow. Now we have 2 yellows. So things are moving along this board. For the sake of time, I'd like to go ahead. So we would continue to play now with greens, adding greens, adding greens, adding greens. And then once you get 3 yellows, you can trade those 3 yellows in for a black, and then you win. So this is a game that just gets kids to recognize that when we're working with numbers, we can work with sets of numbers. And in this case, we're working with sets of 3s, and that they can build off of each other. So this game, you might not see the place value in it right now, but this is all about that trading idea, that regrouping idea, which is essentially important for students. So let's think about this in terms of a trade value of 10. So I would strongly suggest you play with your child trade values of 3, then trade values of 5, and then a trade value of 10. So I'm going to let's say we have our board that looks like this. So we have a board that looks like this, and let's say we have a trade value of 10. That means that every time that we had a number in this column, these are worth, if we're a trade value every time, so there's 1, this is worth 1. So each of these is worth 1. This is called the ones place. Now, 10 ones gets us over here. This is the tens place. And then 10 tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. 10 tens is the hundreds place. And then 10 hundreds would be thousands. So, depending on how old your child is, you'll want either 3 or 4 columns when you play this game. But let's say this was our board at the end. So we have 1, and so I'm just going to write this number. Just like we wrote the number 860 something, I'm going to write the number that's represented on this board. So we have 1,000, 2 hundreds, 110, and 2 ones. What does this number mean? So again, we know thinking about words again, we know what the letters mean. We know what these numbers mean individually. But what does this mean? This one is really, that's thousands, so that's 1,000. This 2 is hundreds. So that means how many hundreds? 2 hundreds. This one over here is the 10, so it means how many tens? 110. And over here we have 2 in the ones column, so it means 2. This again, remember when your teacher or when your child is doing their homework, this is expanded notation. This helps us when we start to do regrouping, when we add and subtract numbers. So the trade value is 10. Now remember, because the trade value is 10, I could have had up to 7, 8, or 9 greens here before I had to trade. So whatever your trade value is, that number or above has to be traded in for the board to be legal. So this is a game that you can play with your students or with your children at home. We'll talk about how you can use what you build up when you play this game with your children at home next week on Math Monday, next Monday. We'd love to hear some of your questions. We'd love to see some of your work. If your students are or if your children are playing at home, go ahead and send us a comment or a question, suggestion. We'd love to hear it. We certainly hope to see you, if not again today, then these videos will all be posted on our Facebook page. And if you have any questions, please send us a message or comment, and we'd love to address the things that are really troubling you or you're struggling with a little bit at home. Thanks for spending your time with us, and we hope you have a great week.